Good afternoon on what is a bright, warm and breezy day. It is Friday the 10th of June and I'm in the reading nook with Kat, who's not ours, and a nice hot cup of tea. And some parcels, of course. So, let's see. Look at this one. Okay, and inside what I have got is this. Be Like a Crow, a solo RPG. Okay, literally, be like a crow. Now this is from Critical Hit. Critical Kit, I should say, Critical Kit. Whose name you will recognise from sort of like the number of Dungeons and Dragons scenarios I've reviewed over the course of the past year or so. They're a UK-based publisher, and they do essentially short scenarios that can be played in a single session and easily slipped into your campaign, all drawn from the author's own campaign. Well, there is sort of like an overarching sort of look as you read through all of them, but they're all pretty much standalone. But the author has done something different this time. Instead of doing a scenario for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, he's done a solo role-playing game called Be Like a Crow. Be Like a Crow, a solo RPG. In this game, for one player, you get to take on the role of a corvid, exploring the world and completing objectives whilst meeting other creatures and collecting weird and wonderful objects. All you need to start playing are these rules: a pen, paper, and a deck of cards. You choose to play a crow, raven, rook, jackdaw, or magpie, and journey through one of the 5 settings: urban, cyber, steampunk, fantasy, and the Tower of London. And spread your wings and take flight with this unique RPG. Now, there are lots of journaling role-playing games out there. For example, 1000 Year Vampire has been one of perhaps the most notable ones, but you also got things like Rise and Delve and Apothecaria. Those are from Blackwell Games. And what they do is they provide a framework and a series of prompts for you to write about within the context of the game, and it basically tell a story in the process. I mean, it's a journaling game. You keep a journal or a diary of your character and his activities. In this case, it's your activities as a crow. And I think, but basically, because I'm talking about crows, that's why I've got him interested. Oh, that is given up and got more than off. Here we get into it. So lots of feathers in the artwork, as you would imagine, and it's very quickly gets into question of chapter 1. What's a solo RPG? What's the difference between this and a traditional role-playing game where you have a game master and several players, and also to an extent a pre-programmed solo adventure game book. We're used to those, the Fighting Fantasy books and the Tunnels and Trolls solo adventures. You using the rules to go through a dungeon or adventure, and it's all programmed for you. And basically how you succeed depending upon your luck and your choices. But here, it's different. So it's using a play deck, and the play deck is used as to determine prompts. That's a very typical mechanism in these type of games. You use an ordinary deck of playing cards. You draw the cards. You check a table. It gives you a prompt. Here, I believe it's also using the cards as a success or failure mechanism. Basically a traditional kind of role-playing mechanism. So it gives you several choices of your crows you can play, and across different life cycle stages of your crow. So you can be a fledgling. So we see a fledgling, a juvenile, or an adult. And that determines the number of objectives you have to succeed at. So you succeed at 2 objectives, you can go from fledgling to juvenile. 4 objectives, juvenile to adult. So you can play as a carrion crow, a magpie, a rook, a raven, and they all have their different strengths and weaknesses, and a jackdaw, and their different characteristics over the different life stages as well. And you've got a discussion of choosing the setting. So the different ones are, you have urban crow, so that's a sort of built up urban environment like we have today, so that's modern. Cyber crow is similar but in a science fiction cyberpunk future. Gothic crow is, I'm presuming, 19th century classic Poe kind of setting. Fantasy crow is your medieval setting a la Dungeons and Dragons. So that's your 5 settings. Sorry, you've got clockwork setting. So you've got 2 Victorian era settings. So Gothic crow, well, Gothic crow is a bit darker than that. Okay, and then so you've got clockwork crow as well, which is going to be your Victorian period. A bit like the cyberpunk setting, but obviously in the Victorian period, and gears. Rather than solids, than electronics, and Ravens of the Tower, which is your Tudor period. So go, lots of beautiful illustrations of crows throughout, members of the crow family, explanation of the rules. So that's not very long. So it's dealing with things like taking turns, generating objectives, event generation, travel and holding objects. Skill checks, and that's really kind of simple. Or you just draw a card from the deck. That's actually the skill level you've got to draw. You've got to beat, and then the next deck you draw. Next card you draw is the random modifier to which you add your skill, and then combat is covered there quite simply, shortly, and then we get into the prompts and the maps. So we have events in flight. So we have events in flight for the 2 different coloured suits of cards. So there's 13 entries for each, and then events on land as well, similar. And you combine these with so you've got fantasy crow objectives, objects. Characters that your crow might encounter, and your fantasy crow maps. You've got a hex map which you will be flying over and landing here and there to fulfill your objectives. And then it's going to do the same for your Gothic crow, and then the map for that. Let's have a look. It's a bit more open. You've got more landscape, it's not an urban area, but it is sort of like a dark Gothic fantasy. And then we have Cyber Crow pumps. And the city, you've got a city map for this. Okay. Very typical sort of like depiction of a cyberpunk city. And then Clockwork Crow map is more of a traditional city map, a la fantasy role playing. And then Urban Crow, and again, that's it. I have to say that's not a very interesting amount of them all so far, and that could have been a bit more interesting. And then Ravens of the Tower, which is absolutely, I actually think it's a great addition to, because essentially the Ravens of the Tower is sort of woven into British culture to an extent, definitely London culture and history and so on. And you've got a map of London in and around the Tower. So yeah, that is. Then we've got sort of like a choice of different options and so on. So you can add options or take away options and how you play, and that's what the character sheet looks like. Here you've got basic background and some skills for your crow down there. So yeah, that is that's Be Like a Crow, a solo RPG. And I think the interesting thing about that is you're not playing you're not playing a person. You're not writing about a person. You're not writing about being a corporation or something. It's not abstract. It's more, some ways more demanding, because you are thinking about playing your character is an animal, perhaps, as you can see, the magpies are chattering away over there. Something that is a lot less understandable and a lot less relatable necessarily than you might imagine. I mean, at the same time, I mean, and the other thing is, it's not anthropomorphic. It's an actual natural animal. In a case of sort of like perhaps the clockwork or the cyberpunk setting augmented, nevertheless, it's an animal still. So yeah, that's Be Like a Crow, a solo RPG. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, then please do click on the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings on the Nook, where you will see me out here with a package and a book or game which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea, then please do hit the subscribe button. Once again, thanks for watching another unboxing of the Nook, and I'll be back again soon. Bye.